let's get ourselves a camera that follows the player smoothly through the scene. Alright, we found us back in Unity once more, and in this short tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how you can make a camera that smoothly follows the player, both with an offset as well as a little bit of a damp time, so basically that it takes a little bit of time until the camera starts following the player. But this, once again, we're going to use the 5 ways of movement scene over here that I have. All of this is linked in the description below, both with code and without code, so let's get started. The idea is that we're going to make a new script, and we're going to call this the camera move script, and that is basically the script that's going to, well, follow the player. Make sure that this is attached to the camera right here, and then we can basically proceed to actually writing the script. Overall, it is fairly straightforward. We don't need a start method. However, what we will need is some serialized fields, and those are going to be the following. The first one is not the camera, but actually the private transform. And that's going to be the target, because of course we have to follow a target. In this case, it's going to be the player, but in theory, it could be any target that you would like. We have another serialized field that's going to be the private float called damp time, and that is the sort of time that it takes to wait until you actually start moving towards the player or the target. We have another serialized field, so that's a private vector 3. We're going to call this the follow offset, and that's going to be equal to a 0 vector right now because, well, right now we don't have any offset. Then there's 2 more private vectors. Those are not serialized fields because we don't need to have access to them in the inspector. So this is going to be the velocity. This is also equal to a vector 3, 0. And then we have a private vector 3, and that is going to be the camera offset. I'm going to show you what all of those mean in just a moment. And that's actually not 0. That is actually vector 3, 0, 0, and then minus 10. And there we go. And we can do this either in the update, we can do this in the late update, or in the fixed update. I personally have found that doing this in the late update works the best. However, I highly recommend playing around with this because depending on how you move your character and how everything else, well, it basically happens in your scene, maybe the fixed update or the late update or the normal update might yield better results for you. So first of all, we basically wanted to determine a destination. So this is going to be the target destination, and this is going to be equal to the target position, that's fine, plus the follow offset, plus the camera offset. So this might be a little bit weird. So the follow offset, we're going to actually explain when we're in game. The camera offset just basically makes sure that the camera remains in Z position minus 10. Otherwise, this basically is not going to be the case. And then the transform.position of this particular object, in this case, the camera, is going to be set to vector 3 dot. And this is an awesome method that is the smooth damp method here. And that is basically going to be awesome because we pass in the current position, then we pass in the target destination. You can see it actually suggests this to us. Then we're going to do ref velocity. This is going to output the velocity that we're currently having. And then smoothing the time is going to be the damp time over here. You can, by the way, also serialize the velocity just to see the velocity in the inspector as well, but it is not needed. So in theory, this is actually everything that we're going to need. There's one more thing that you can do, and that is you can check for target. If target is true, then you want to do this. The reason why you might want to do that is because if the target is null, then of course, none of this should get called. This is not strictly necessary. However, it might be a good idea to not have an exception thrown. So let's jump back into Unity over here and let's take a look. So the first thing here in the camera move, of course, is we want to drag the player into the target. That's very important. Don't forget that. And then what we can do is we can just start the scene over here, and we should see that the camera immediately snaps to the player. If I start moving, look at this. Absolutely freaking fantastic. So we are now moving. The camera is moving with us, so that is pretty awesome. And then the offset here is basically just an offset, as you can see. We can basically offset the camera. Now, the Z offset doesn't really make any sense whatsoever, but the X and Y offset, like those could be quite important, right? Maybe you want to have it so that the player is at the bottom of the screen here instead of the middle of the screen, so you can offset it there as well. And the damp time is absolutely freaking awesome. If we put in a 0.5 over here, for example, and I start moving, look at this. Now it's going to take a moment until the camera starts moving towards the player. I think this is a really cool effect. Now you can see this little jittering over here. The reason why this jittering happens is because the way that I'm moving the character right now is with the rigid body velocity. If I were to use the vector move towards method, all of a sudden, the jittering goes away. So just keep in mind that sometimes whether or not you have some jittering depends on also how you move the player as well as how you move the camera. Just keep that in mind. So it all sort of works together, right? One thing happens in the late update, the other things happen in the normal update. So there might be a little bit of a mismatch there. But usually playing around with this gets you to the result that you want. Absolutely awesome. What a smooth camera follow. And this is a smooth transition to this video right here where we'll talk about some basic inputs in Unity. Hope to see you there. So yeah,